Okay.
Step away from that Mercedes right now and put your hands up.
Excuse me? I'm just getting into my car to go home.
This isn't your car. We've had reports of a theft in progress.
I am Dr. Vance, the chief surgeon here. This is my vehicle.
I don't care what you claim to be. Show me real ID.
My badge is right here and I have the registration in hand.
That looks fake. Stay put or I'm...
The parking lot recording captured everything, from the initial glare of the afternoon sun off Dr. Sterling's silver sedan to the moment the first metal cuff clicked shut. What you just witnessed wasn't a standard traffic stop or a routine investigation. It was a high-stakes collision between ego and expertise. Officer Miller had absolutely no idea who he was dealing with. He saw a man in a tracksuit near a luxury car and let his assumptions override his training. While most people would have spiraled into a visible panic under the weight of an aggressive police confrontation, Dr. Elias Sterling remained eerily calm. His composure wasn't born of submission, but of a man used to holding human hearts in his hands. As the chief of cardiothoracic surgery at Mercy General, a fellow of the American College of Surgeons, and a pioneer in minimally invasive valve replacement, he was the most stable person in that parking lot. Today, we're breaking down how a simple trip to the gym resulted in a $3.8 million lesson in accountability. Before we dive deeper into the professional fallout of this encounter, I need you to do something right now. Drop a comment below with the word respect if you think this officer crossed the line the second he ignored the doctor's credentials. I also want you to hit that subscribe button because you don't want to miss the intense footage of the chief of police's reaction later in this video. It is truly shocking. Dr. Elias Sterling was not a man who ever expected special treatment, nor was he someone who flaunted his status in the checkout line. At 50 years old, he had spent over half of his life in the most demanding environments known to medicine. With 26 years in the profession, his resume was a testament to a relentless pursuit of excellence. He didn't just practice medicine, he transformed it. Elias was credited with performing over 4,000 successful heart surgeries, maintaining a survival rate that sat in the top 1% nationally. He had received the prestigious Lasker Award for Clinical Medical Research and held 3 separate patents for surgical instruments that are now standard in operating rooms across the globe. Beyond the trophies and the titles, Dr. Sterling was known among his peers for his ice water veins, a nickname earned during a grueling 14-hour aortic repair where he remained the only calm person in a room full of panicked residents. His reputation at Mercy General was that of a stern but fair mentor, a man who believed that precision was the only acceptable standard. On any given Tuesday, he might spend his morning lecturing at the university and his afternoon saving the life of a state senator or a homeless veteran with the same level of focus. He lived by a strict code of ethics, believing that every person deserved dignity, regardless of their circumstances. That Saturday afternoon began as any other for the doctor. It was his one window of personal time in a 90-hour work week. He had just finished a high-intensity interval training session at his local commercial gym, a routine he maintained to ensure his physical stamina matched the demands of the operating table. He walked out of the glass doors of the fitness center, breathing in the fresh air, carrying a leather bag filled with his gear. He approached his silver luxury sedan, a reward to himself after 20 years of service, intending to head home for a rare dinner with his family. He was just an ordinary citizen finishing a workout, unaware that in less than 60 seconds, his entire world would be challenged by the barrel of a flashlight and a pair of steel restraints. The scene was set in the sprawling asphalt parking lot of the elite fitness complex at approximately 5:40 p.m. The sun was hanging low on the horizon, casting long, distorted shadows across the rows of vehicles. It was a typical suburban afternoon, filled with the distant hum of the interstate and the rhythmic thud of car doors closing. Dr. Sterling reached for the handle of his vehicle, his mind already pivoting toward a complex mitral valve repair scheduled for Monday morning. Enter Officer Miller. At 44 years old, Miller was a veteran of the force with 15 years of service, but his record was a mosaic of proactive policing awards and use of force complaints that had been consistently brushed aside. He had been patrolling the area in response to a vague suspicious person call, a report of someone loitering near high-end vehicles. When Miller rounded the corner in his cruiser and saw a black man in a tech fleece tracksuit standing by a car worth more than the officer's annual salary, his flawed reasoning immediately bypassed investigation and jumped to interrogation. Miller didn't see a surgeon, he saw a suspect. He didn't see a car owner, he saw a car thief. To Miller, the expensive tracksuit looked like criminal attire, and the doctor's calm demeanor was interpreted as practiced deception. He pulled his cruiser diagonally behind the silver sedan, blocking any exit, and stepped out with his hand already resting on his duty belt, his body cam clicking into active recording mode. The tension in the air became electric as the officer closed the distance with a predatory stride. "Officer Miller, get your hands off that vehicle right now and turn around." "Victim, this is my car, officer. I'm just leaving the gym." "Officer Miller, I said turn around. Keep your hands where I can see them. We've had a string of thefts here and you fit the description to a T." "Victim, I assure you there's no need for this. My identification is in my bag. I am Dr. Elias Sterling, the chief surgeon at Mercy." "Officer Miller, I don't care if you're the Pope. You're going in cuffs until I figure out whose car this really is." The escalation was immediate. Dr. Sterling stood his ground, his hands raised at shoulder height, his fingers spread wide. He was performing a mental checklist of his rights, specifically recalling the protections afforded under the Fourth Amendment. He knew that under Terry v. Ohio, the officer needed reasonable suspicion that he was involved in criminal activity to even detain him, let alone a higher standard of probable cause for an arrest. Officer Miller stepped back from the door. "Now, you're being non-compliant." "Victim, officer, I am being completely compliant. I am informing you that I am the owner of this vehicle and I have the electronic key in my pocket. If you'd allow me to press the button." "Officer Miller, don't reach for anything. You reach for a pocket and this goes a completely different way for you, you understand?" By now the commotion had drawn the attention of other gym goers. 3 people had stopped near the gym entrance, their smartphones raised to capture the scene. "Victim, you're making a $3 million mistake you will deeply regret. My legal counsel will have this footage before the sun goes down." "Officer Miller, is that a threat? Are you threatening a police officer?" "Victim, it's a statement of fact regarding the civil liability you are currently incurring for an unlawful detention." "Officer Miller, keep talking and I'll add resisting to your charges tonight. Turn around and put your hands behind your back." Dr. Sterling didn't flinch. He looked directly into the lens of the officer's body cam. He knew the department's policy on de-escalation, and Miller was violating every paragraph of it. "Victim, this camera is recording your career ending in real time. I'm going to ask one more time. What is the specific, articulable suspicion you have for this stop?" "Officer Miller, the suspicion is you're a smart mouth who doesn't know when to shut up. Hands behind your back now." "Have you ever been in a situation where you knew you were right but the person in power refused to listen? Type yes or no in the comments." The officer grabbed Dr. Sterling's wrist with a violent jerk, spinning him toward the sedan. The doctor's leather gym bag fell to the pavement, spilling a stethoscope and a medical badge onto the oil-stained asphalt. Miller didn't even look down. He was too deep in his own adrenaline-fueled narrative to see the evidence of his error staring him in the face. "Victim, officer, you are stepping on my medical credentials. If you look down, you'll see the Mercy General seal." "Officer Miller, anyone can buy a prop on the internet. You're going to the station while we run these plates and find the real owner." "Victim, the plates will come back to me at this address. You are acting outside the scope of your authority." "Officer Miller, I'll decide what my scope is. You're under arrest for obstruction and suspicious activity." Miller ratcheted the handcuffs so tight they bit into the doctor's skin. The bystanders were now shouting, telling the officer he was arresting a respected member of the community, but Miller shouted them back, threatening them with interference charges. He was doubling down, his ego refusing to allow a suspect to dictate the terms of the engagement. The cold, serrated edge of the handcuffs pressed deep into Dr. Sterling's wrist as Officer Miller shoved him into the back of the patrol car. The interior of the cruiser smelled of stale coffee and industrial-grade disinfectant. The seat was a hard, molded plastic that offered no comfort, forcing the doctor to lean forward awkwardly to accommodate his bound hands. Miller slammed the door, and for the first time in 20 years, Elias Sterling found himself behind a cage. The ride to the precinct was conducted in a heavy, suffocating silence. Dr. Sterling didn't plead or yell. He watched the city pass by through the reinforced glass, his mind documenting every second for the lawsuit he knew was coming. Upon arrival at the station, he was led through a side entrance into the booking area, a room illuminated by flickering, sickly yellow fluorescent lights. The booking officer, a younger man named Officer Vance, took Dr. Sterling's personal effects. When he picked up the leather bag and opened it, he stopped. He pulled out the heavy, gold-trimmed medical badge and a personalized stethoscope engraved with E. Sterling, M.D. Vance looked from the badge to the man in the handcuffs, then back to the badge. Officer Vance: Miller, where did you pick this guy up? Officer Miller: gym parking lot, suspicious person, possible 10 to 31. Officer Vance: Miller, look at the name on this ID. This is Elias Sterling, as in the Sterling Wing at the Heart and Vascular Center. The air in the booking room suddenly felt very thin. Vance didn't wait for a response. He grabbed a phone and called the watch commander. Within 2 minutes, Lieutenant Holloway descended into the booking area, his face turning a pale shade of gray the moment he recognized the suspect. Holloway had been a patient at Mercy General 3 years prior. Dr. Sterling's team had saved his father's life. Lieutenant Holloway, get those cuffs off him. Now! Miller, my office. Immediately. Holloway personally stepped forward to unlock the restraints, his hands shaking slightly. He began a frantic string of apologies, mentioning misunderstandings and heightened security, but Dr. Sterling simply rubbed his wrists, his eyes cold and analytical. Victim, Lieutenant, I'd like a copy of the body cam footage and the incident report before I leave, and I suggest you call your chief. He'll want to know why his department just gifted me a significant portion of his annual budget. Do you think the supervisor's apology was enough? Or should the officer have been fired on the spot? Let me know below. Elias Sterling did not go home to sleep. By 8 p.m. that evening, he was in the mahogany-lined office of Arthur Goldman, the state's most formidable civil rights attorney. By midnight, a formal notice of intent to sue had been drafted. By Monday morning, the ACLU had been notified, and the chief judge of the district court, a personal friend of the doctor, had been briefed on the procedural failures. The police chief's personal cell phone began ringing at 6 a.m. on Sunday. It was a call he didn't want to take. He offered Dr. Sterling a private lunch and a letter of regret, which Goldman promptly rejected on the doctor's behalf as insulting and insufficient. The lawsuit filed 3 days later was a 78-page masterclass in legal destruction. It alleged false arrest, battery, intentional infliction of emotional distress, and a violation of the 14th Amendment's Equal Protection Clause. As the legal wheels turned, the court of public opinion was already in session. One of the gym-goers had uploaded a high-definition video of the arrest to TikTok. Within 6 hours, it had 2 million views. By 48 hours, it was the lead story on every national news network. The narrative of a black heart surgeon arrested while saving his own car became a symbol of systemic bias. The internal affairs investigation lasted 6 weeks, a grueling process involving 12 separate interviews and a forensic deep dive into Miller's history. The findings were damning. They discovered a statistical pattern in Miller's stops that was impossible to ignore. In the last 24 months, Miller had conducted 142 pedestrian checks in high-income areas. Data showed that 92% of those stopped were people of color, despite that demographic making up only 12% of the local residents. The investigation also revealed that Miller had deactivated his body cam audio during the initial 30 seconds of the encounter, a direct violation of department policy, and only turned it back on when the confrontation turned physical. The final IA report concluded that Miller had no reasonable suspicion for the stop and had manufactured the resisting charge to justify his own ego. The fallout was swift and absolute. Officer Miller was served with a formal termination letter citing 6 major departmental violations, including conduct unbecoming an officer, filing a false police report, and bias policing. He attempted to appeal through the police union. but the evidence was so overwhelming and the public pressure so intense that the union eventually withdrew its support. Miller's career in law enforcement was effectively over. He was placed on a national decertification registry, ensuring he would never wear a badge again. However, the consequences didn't stop with one officer. The Department of Justice launched a pattern or practice investigation into the entire precinct. A federal report spanning 300 pages detailed a culture of warrior-style policing that incentivized aggressive stops over community safety. This led to a federally mandated consent decree, requiring 7 specific reforms: mandatory unconscious bias training for all officers, the appointment of a civilian oversight board with subpoena power, a revised use of force policy, mandatory Bodycam audits every 30 days, a duty to intervene policy, the elimination of stop and frisk quotas, and a transparency portal where stop data is published monthly for public review. The civil lawsuit settled for a staggering $3.8 million. It was a record-breaking amount for the municipality, a loss that forced a restructuring of the city's insurance premiums. But Dr. Sterling didn't keep a dime. At a press conference on the steps of the courthouse, he announced that the entire settlement would be used to establish the Sterling Justice Initiative. This money was paid by the taxpayers for the failures of a system that was supposed to protect them, Dr. Sterling stated, his voice calm and resolute. It will now be used to fund legal representation for those who don't have a medical degree or a silver sedan to protect them from the same bias I faced. Dr. Sterling returned to the operating room the following week. He still goes to the same gym, but now, when he walks to his car, the officers on patrol give him a respectful nod from a distance. The legacy of that 15-minute encounter is now taught in law schools as a landmark case on the high cost of unchecked authority. This story matters because it forces us to look at the fragility of justice. Dr. Elias Sterling had every advantage a person could have in our society. He had a prestigious career, a high level of education, significant financial resources, and the legal knowledge to articulate his rights in real time. He was, by all traditional metrics, the perfect victim, and still, none of those things saved him from being shoved against a car and put in iron. If a world-renowned heart surgeon can be treated as a common criminal in broad daylight, we have to imagine the thousands of individuals without those advantages who face the same aggression every day. This case was a success story for accountability, but it is the exception, not the rule. Most people don't have a $3 million mistake to hold over an officer's head. They don't have the chief of police on speed dial or a team of surgeons to vouch for them in the booking room. We celebrate this victory because it proves that the system can be held to account. But we must remember that true reform isn't found in a settlement check. It's found in changing the heart of the institutions themselves. What was your biggest takeaway from Dr. Sterling's story? Do you think $8 million was a fair settlement for what he went through? If you found this breakdown insightful, please share this video to help spread awareness about police accountability. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss a deep dive into the cases that change our laws. I want to hear your thoughts in the comments. How can we prevent this from happening to the next person who doesn't have a medical badge? Until next time, keep your eyes open and your cameras rolling. See you in the next one.